We are here today to discuss reentry into society and the stumbling blocks that people face as they're reentering from prison. Some of the experiences had, the issues they face, and how they overcome them. We have here our guest tonight is Kwaku Bruce.
Yes.
And Kwaku, how long have you been out now?
It's almost about a year. I'm 1 month short of a year.
1 month short of a year.
Yeah.
How's it been so far?
It's been interesting.
Yeah.
The change in the social structure, political climate, the kind of aid you can get coming out as a felon. And I have yet to determine if it's a change for the good or for the worse. So,
right.
It's been a challenge, but it's one that I kind of prep myself for. So
That's good stuff. Okay, so I guess to start, I think my first question is, I just want to go back a little bit, I want to say about 3 to 6 months before you got out. Did you have a game plan?
yes.
And okay, so what did that look like 3 to 6 months before you got out?
That game plan entailed me continuing to work while I was in prison and earning enough in prison to be able to not supplement but aid me financially. Because let's face it, we didn't make that much in there.
Right.
You went from 50 cents to eventually you made your way up to $2. That's if you stuck around for quite a long time.
Yeah, but you'd have to be there for 2 years to get to $2.
And so I had all these goals and dreams and things that I wanted to do getting out, and I had planned on obtaining my dealer's license to buy cars from the auction. I planned on enrolling back in school, which I actually am. We got to talk about that tomorrow.
Right. For sure.
So there are a lot of things after 7 years in. There's a lot of things that you get a rush of ideas. And at 3, you start getting them at a year. So at 3 months, you can't sleep. You can't think straight. You're constantly thinking about that inevitable stepping out those gates and having somewhat of a autonomy or freedom back.
Right.
I wasn't quite prepared for the financial aspect of being out and having to pay for somewhere to stay, pay to eat, everything you have to pay for.
Yeah,
we paid in there too.
Either.
We paid, but you saw that 10 or 20% coming off your off your account.
Off everything we did.
So the biggest goal I think I had for myself that I honestly accomplished is making it past 6 months and not violating my parole, not getting in trouble, not having my parole raise any eyebrows or put me under any restrictions. So that I think within itself is a milestone, because you and I both know 6 months is a lot of time, for someone to throw their life back away and end up back in there. So
yeah, it's in case the viewers didn't know, I myself only just got out June 3rd of 2024. So I've only been out for 5 months.
Yeah.
And I had I think everybody has a lot of grandiose plans.
Yeah.
You want to step back into society. You want to step right back into the shoes you was wearing before. You want to go out and you're going to get the job and you can get a place and you're going to get set up. You're going to be stable, but it's not that easy when you got that brand on your forehead, that felon on your forehead, and it messes with people and it slows a lot, and people don't realize how biased society is.
Yeah, society as a whole. Yeah.
Society as a whole.
Yeah.
They don't realize how biased society as a whole is.
Even on a social level.
But I'm saying it's I'm 8 years. I did 8 years in. You did 7 years in.
Yeah.
Time is served.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they don't let it go. They never let it go.
It's I think it's embedded in the culture in America. Like we have events that happen that transpires throughout history, and I think while we were in, there were a couple of things that happened politically and in the social climate that kind of reignited something in people.
Right.
And the moment they hear car theft, carjacking, armed robbery, drug dealing,
Right.
assault this, assault that, you aren't just this well-spoken, well-dressed, friendly person they just met or been knowing for a couple of months.
Right.
You're now a felon, and it's like, had I known this, I would have never gave you this job.
That's the thing.
I would have never gave you this apartment.
Right.
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 And I had an incident recently whereby, I had inserted myself, or I had gotten brought into the fold of, these group of friends who were fellow cyclists.
Right.
And I caught my case back in 2009,
Okay.
almost 17 years ago.
Okay.
And you would think that would be a long time.
Right.
Like I wasn't just arrested 2 years ago or 4 years ago. It's been almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And when I was out on probation, I had this thing of, being upfront with people. Hey, I'm a felon. I'm currently on probation. This
Right.
is, so and so and so and so.
Right.
So as an employer, as a potential collaborator or business partner, you know what you're getting into. I don't want you blindsiding me with any, hey, this, that, and the third. No.
Right. Yeah. We didn't know that this was the case.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we didn't know
right.
you had a felony on your record. And,
Right.
And for some reason in society, that deems you undesirable.
Well, you're a second-class citizen at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
And America, unfortunately, has this social structure, this tier system that
Right.
we put ourselves under, to where even people in the struggling working class will still put you beneath them, because it's like, I'm working at Walmart and I'm
Right.
living in this, dodgy apartment, but you're a felon.
Right.
I'm better than you.
Right. Right.
I've never been to jail. I've never got a speeding ticket, but you have, and that makes you a little questionable.
Yeah. This is what's funny about this, and I had this conversation with somebody else the other day, and exactly what you were talking about. And they were talking about how I've never committed a felony before, and I never broke the law before, and I never did this and the other, So I mean, so it's like, it's only right that people who have been in those situations, they should receive some kind of. I'm like, but they've already received that punishment,
Right.
and they're done with it. And then when they're done with it, I mean, when is it over?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, when is it over?
Yeah.
Right? The other part of that is, and I was like, and I guarantee, I said, and you sit here and you say things like, oh, I've never done this, I've never broken the law before. I said, but I guarantee at some point, you got behind the wheel of a sports car on the highway, and it was probably about between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning, and you punched the gas and ran it up to about 95 to 102 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I said, and you probably had a passenger in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And whether you know it or not, that's reckless endangerment.
It's a
And
felony.
in some states, it's attempted manslaughter.
Yeah.
Right? I said, it's a felony. You committed it and you got away with it.
Yeah.
But it was still a felony and you endangered somebody's life. You know what I'm saying? People don't think about stuff
No.
like that. They never consider things like that.
No.
They just think because they didn't get caught doing it, oh, well, I never did it. Doesn't mean you didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? It just means you didn't get caught doing it. I was just dumb enough to get caught.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
when you look at the numbers, the reality is there are more people in our population, just in the United States, who've had or currently have some type of record.
That's the thing, though, and that's what's funny because the statistics are, and I have looked this up.
Yeah.
The statistics are that 2/3 of the population of the United States
Yeah.
either have or will have within the next 5 years, right? Have some
Some
kind
type
of
of tarnishment on it, yeah.
some kind of legal proceeding, criminal proceeding.
Yeah.
right? Not just some civil junk, but a criminal proceeding against
Yes.
them. 2/3 of the population.
So where does that leave? How did we end up in a tier that it ends up defining our lives for decades? Because I've known people, and I know a few people who've got criminal records,
Right.
but their parents and their families
Right.
were affluent enough to get them a good lawyer,
Right.
was powerful enough to write a letter to the judge,
Right.
or even take the judge out for dinner,
Right.
And these individuals, for the virtue of their skin color, their hair texture, or whatever it is,
Right.
they're able to go about their lives. They're able to coexist in society and not suffer the kind of ramifications that guys like you and I, have to.
Right.
Because I think the rule is, what I've noticed is, if you're rich, if you're powerful, if your last name holds some weight,
Right.
whatever it is that's on your record, you don't have to worry about. It has little to no effect on you.
Yeah.
Because there are wealthy people in this country. There are people who have positions of power that when you look at their record, like,
Come on,
Like-
man. We're not going to say no names, but
Yeah.
the name is on everybody's lips even
Yeah.
before we say it.
Yeah.
There's one very particular person who has what is it? 48
federal indictments.
federal indictments against him. You know what I'm saying? And he's still just out and about, walking
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Like everything's everything, living his life.
It's
You know
like
what I'm saying?
It's like how the IRS would rather come after you and I
Right.
for our taxes and not the wealthy, because the wealthy will have no problem spending 5% of their wealth to hire a lawyer that'll fight the IRS. And the
Right.
IRS is like, you know what?
Yeah.
We don't want to fight these guys. Go ahead and cheat on your taxes, dodge taxes.
Right.
We're going to go after these guys who can't afford to fight us back.
Right. That's the thing. Before we get into that, though, let's step back a second, because I do want to talk about something. I want you to remember your first day out. I want you to really think about, like, okay, so what was your very first day when they took you out the front door, when they put you in the car, when they dropped you off? What was that experience like, and where did they take you, and what was that experience like? I want to know what that was for you.
It was very overwhelming. More overwhelming than my immigration to America. Like, it was 4 or 5 times that feeling.
Wow.
And I'll be honest with you, I haven't really told a lot of people this. I've told really close friends and family on the phone while I was in there.
Right.
But there were a lot of times where I thought I was never getting out of that place. I knew I had an out date.
Right.
I would every week look at my paperwork and let me see where we're at on the calendar.
Right. Right.
And you're anticipating, and you're looking forward to that day. But
There's something
when
in
you
the back of
think
your mind.
back and say, hold on, I've been in for 5. It's been 5 already.
Yeah.
I'm never getting out of here. You see people come, you see people go. And some of the worst parts is, well, good for them, but when you see guys who've been in 30, 20, 25 years walk out those doors and go home,
Right.
and you're still sitting there.
Yeah.
But one of the things I used to reinforce, I should say to cope with that, is everyone in those facilities have an out date. Now,
Well, not everybody.
Not
I
every-
met a couple guys.
This is my
that don't.
philosophy on it.
I met a couple guys that don't,
this is
and
my
I feel real
philosophy
bad
on
for
it.
them.
You're
Right.
either walking out or you're getting carried out.
That's the thing. So I guess you're right.
You're not.
right.
It gives in a spiritual sense, leaning towards spirituality for a little bit. No situation is permanent. No condition is permanent.
True.
You
Absolutely.
would never be somewhere for eternity, except where you're supposed to go according to your higher power.
True.
But it was an overwhelming feeling. I could not get myself to stop thinking that, how am I out here? Am I supposed to be out here? Did they make a mistake?
Right.
Were we going to get a call and I have to be returned? I mean, no human being should be made to feel like they're stepping into a society they don't belong in.
Right.
Or like, you get out of a car after a 40, hour drive away from that prison. The first place you stop and you're looking around and,
Yeah.
you know, it's man, it's nerve-wracking. So
Remember.
my uncle flew in from Maryland with my cousin who had just immigrated to the States from Liberia.
Right.
My ex-girlfriend, who was one of my support systems, like helped me the whole 7 years.
Right.
Phone calls, money for food, whatever, no questions asked, she would send it, letters, pictures. And she decided to surprise me. I didn't know my uncle was flying in. My uncle and my cousin was flying in. So they drove and they came and picked me up. So it added a whole nother like level of like anxiety and excitement
Right.
to my release. But I think seeing them kind of helped me cope with it a little bit.
Really?
Because it was talking and reminiscing about my childhood and times we spent together when the three of us were last together, which was
Yeah.
over a decade, you know?
Wow. Wow.
So it took away from having to talk about prison.
Right.
Because for a lot of families, can you imagine walking out of a place like that for doing 10, 5, and then the questions you're bombarded with?
Yeah.
What was it like? Food. Talk about this. What's the worst thing you saw?
Right. Right.
You know,
Right. And they always want to
you
know.
You're constantly answering those questions. And that's why I kind of don't make it like a known thing when I meet people
Right.
to say, hey, I'm a felon, I've been in prison, because
Right.
I'm somewhat traumatizing myself by talking about this stuff.
The thing is, I'm gonna say like this. For me, I was actually speaking to another friend of mine, and she expressed something to me that I thought was very interesting. She was like, you know, when you walk into a place to go get a job, you're filling out an application or whatever. And then on the application, they ask, you know, or they have the question. Now, they don't have it on there anymore, right? But you fill out the application and you go to the interview, you know what I'm saying? And you go through the whole interview process and you don't mention it and they don't mention it,
Yeah.
right? But then later on, you know, you're working the job, you're at the job, and then they're like, oh, we did a background check on you and it says you have a felony on your record, why didn't you tell us? Well, she was of a frame of mind where she was like, why would I? You know what I mean? That's like me walking into a job interview and saying I'm black,
Right.
or I'm Hispanic, or I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, I'm Arabic and I'm Muslim. You know what I'm saying? You know, and you don't walk into an interview and announce that, yeah, I'm the person you don't want to hire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there are all these biases and prejudices in our society that people refuse to acknowledge, but we all know exist. We all know are there,
Yeah.
right? So she's just like, you know, I mean, if I wouldn't walk in and tell you, okay, well, I'm black or I'm this or I'm that or I'm the other thing, I'm not going to walk in and tell you I'm a felon either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it made so much sense to me. You know, it made so much sense to me. It's like, I guess, as far as that first day, though, and I do want to talk about this, as far as that first day, though, for me, when I first got out, I wish I had somebody there for me, because I didn't. You know, being not from around here, I was like alone.
Yeah.
You know, they put me in a prison wagon. You know, the one with the little doors that close up, and they actually had me
coffin.
and they actually had me cuffed.
Portable coffin.
Now I'm out. I'm being released, but they had me cuffed inside a prison wagon, right? And they got me in the little coffin thing inside there, right? And my two little boxes are in the back somewhere. So I ride for 45 minutes in this truck. They let me out, right? They dropped me off at this place downtown. Now they told me that they had found housing for me. They told me it was supposed to be decent housing. They told me it was supposed to be this and the other thing, you know, some kind of halfway house situation. It was not a halfway house, right? It was a homeless shelter, right? They didn't walk in with me to introduce me to anybody or anything like that. They dropped me off in the alley with my two boxes. They dropped me off in an alley. It was like, yeah, the place is right there. Took off, left. I'm completely at a loss. It's like, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was so traumatizing.
Yeah. Oh.
It was so traumatizing for
Very.
me.
I can
to
imagine.
to go through that. And it's like, okay, like I'm literally on my own and by myself right now, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do next, right? I don't even know if these people know who I am, you know? And I gotta walk in here and I gotta carry these boxes in here, you know, and like I said, they're in the alley. So that's not,
Not
I
to,
mean,
not to
anything,
mention how you'll be perceived
right,
when you walk in there.
right. So then I walk in and yeah, they knew who I was. And so, you know, I got checked in and everything, but still, this is not the place they told me it was.
No.
It's nothing like they said it was. So it was a whole different experience for me. It was just like, I mean, it was really strange for me, but it was like I felt literally like I had just been abandoned on the street.
Yeah, the thought of taking someone out of a confinement, you know,
Right.
now let's face it, circumstances of them leading up to that confinement, it's you know, that's a whole another
A
debate.
whole different thing. I mean,
But you know, someone doing years in these facilities, you take them, and on the day that they're supposed to be released,
right,
you shackle them as if they're just coming in,
right,
and it's almost of a that's a psychological game. That's a very that's torture right there.
right.
As if to
Right.
say, yeah, you're walking out of these gates,
Yeah, but you're not
but
free.
you're gonna feel this cold steel on your wrist and know that
You're not
we're just
free.
a phone call away
Right.
from bringing you right back.
Mhm.
You know, and then to compile that, if I'm not from this state, if I don't have family in this state,
Right.
the best thing you can do for me is to take me to a homeless shelter after I've been away from society for 10, 5, 8 years,
Right.
and
Right.
put me in a place where people there are unpredictable.
To the extreme. And believe me, I had to face it all.
You know, and
I had to face all of that. But yeah,
when you see guys, when we're in there and you see guys come back, and when they tell these stories, I used to be naive. I used to be one of those guys that would dismiss violators when they come back, like, oh man, you were out there messing up.
yeah,
But when you hear stories like yours,
right,
now what's stopping a guy from standing in that alley with his 2 boxes and say, you know what, forget this, I'm walking down that alley, making a left,
yeah,
and I'm gone.
ghost.
And and why? Because you gave me the opportunity to be able to do this, or rather lack of help.
It's
I'm gonna create a devastating what you call it in my wake.
It was the utter lack of concern
Yeah.
that really got me, right? And then it's like, and then so here's the other part though too, and I want to ask like, okay, so you had mentioned like, you know, that you weren't prepared for, you know, the financial situation when you got out, and there was probably some other things that you didn't mention that you weren't prepared for too.
Yeah.
Like when you first got out, like what did you realize? I mean, instantly that like you step out the door, what is it that I need, that I absolutely need, that I do not have? And how did once you realized what that was, how did you go about getting that for yourself?
I would say it'll probably be the cell phone,
Yeah.
because we're used to standing online for 15, 20 minutes to use the phone.
Yeah, just to use the phone.
You know, sometimes you might have to threaten a guy.
Half hour to 45 minutes.
You know, you might have to threaten a guy to get on the
Yeah, to
phone.
get
You
on
know,
the phone,
I've
right,
seen
right.
best friends go at it over
a
those
phone
phones.
call. Over a phone call.
So I think it was something that I thought, or that I needed to acquire to be able to aid this newfound, somewhat, you know, freedom that I have.
The semblance of freedom.
You know, and being able to get on that phone whenever I want it and call someone and text someone.
Right.
You know, like that was really big. But I thought I could just walk into a store like we used to back in the day and just get a phone.
Right. No.
You know,
No.
and was I wrong?
Yeah.
Because now you gotta show this, you gotta show that, you gotta show your passport, your visa,
It's
make sure
everything. It's
make sure
everything.
you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know,
it's a
and
birth certificate, driver's license,
Yeah.
Social Security card.
you know.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
But I needed to get that because my uncle and cousin were flying back to Maryland a few days later. I needed a sure way of communicating with them. I needed a way to communicate with family back home in Liberia, and yeah, acquiring a cell phone was like highly imperative. Like, I wasn't able to accomplish it on the first day,
Right.
but I did on the second or third day. And when I finally did, it was very liberating. Because the halfway house I was put up in, if you didn't have a phone, there was a house phone, but the house phone was always occupied.
Right.
Because some guys in the house weren't allowed to have cell phones.
Obviously.
And it's one of those things that, you feel like you're from one prison, like a lot of us call those halfway houses and these shelter places. You're coming out of one prison and going into the next. Because here you are out in society, out into the developed world.
Right.
And you still having to stand online and wait for a communication tool to call your loved ones to say, hey, I'm out now. Or, hey, could you bring me a change of clothes and some hygiene?
Right.
So the cell phone thing was really important, and I was fortunate that my uncle and cousin were able to help me with that, because financially, it's a joke to give a grown man $500 and say,
it's right, and be
welcome
like,
to society.
Right.
Here's this $500. The moment you spend $100 of that, the moment you hand it a couple of 20s and change, that money's gone.
Pretty much.
That money's gone. And when the commissioners and the wardens, when they stand on TV, when they stand on these, televised programs, and they're reassuring, the community and people in society that we're helping these guys. These guys are getting what they want. They're being released to this, they're being released to that. If a guy did 15, 20 years,
it's a joke.
And you give him $500, you give him $500.
Right.
There are people in this country who go to dinner and spend
$500
more than that.
$500
on a dinner.
On a dinner. Yeah.
I used to work at a 5-star restaurant.
Right.
I know, making a halibut and risotto, those meals aren't cheap.
They tell you,
But financially, that needs to be corrected. I think it needs to be calculated, and people need to be compensated to a certain degree for their time spent in prison, regardless of their level of conviction of crime.
Right.
Because if we are considered under the law vulnerable people while we're in there, how do you expect someone who's vulnerable to be able to properly make a living for themselves when, one, the job they're being offered in these facilities are just little to nothing?
It's 25 cents an hour. You're getting a quarter an hour.
25
cents an hour. And you have to work for half a year before you get to 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then it depends on what kind of job you have, whether or not you can get more than 50 cents an hour or not.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working an interstate job where somebody else, some other corporation is making billions of dollars off of your labor, then you're not going to get anything above 50 cents an hour. You know what I mean? And people don't understand this. It's like, you have these corporations that come into prisons and start these labor jobs, and they're like, oh, but we're going to pay you interstate pay. But they don't know that the state takes 90%, 90% of your pay. So if the interstate pay is supposed to be $10 an hour, right? You're only going to get $1. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get $1.
Realistically, prisons have budgets. Every state has a prison budget.
Right.
If my time in this facility has been paid for by taxpayers, if there's a budget already for me being here,
right,
for this sentence that I was sentenced to,
right,
why are you charging me separately for being here?
That's the thing.
When our loved ones send us money, they take out 10%.
Yeah. And that's something that was a debate that I had with them while I was in there. I actually tried to fight that while I was in there. But yeah,
it was a good fight.
It was a decent fight, but I lost, of course.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about it. But here's the thing, though, right? What I do know is that it is illegal for the state to take that 10% from money that your loved ones are sending in, because that money has already been taxed. The money has already been taxed. The state has no right to it at all whatsoever. None. Yeah. None whatsoever. Yeah. Right? So the thing is,
that needs to be abolished.
So that whole thing needs to be abolished altogether, right? But what's funny about it though is people, the money that they send in, our people, our loved ones send money in for us. They take 10%, right? Then we make purchases with that money and they tax it again. They tax it again, right? And then if you remember how the phone time works and how the JPay, the email on JPay works, right? Then they tax it a third time, right? They tax you a third time for buying tokens on JPay, or they used to before the phones became free. They tax you again
Every
for
time
the phone.
you thought about spending that money, you had to share it with the state.
Yeah.
Because things on the commissary were overpriced.
By far.
Low quality, overpriced.
Here's the thing. This isn't. What's funny about that? You bring that up. What's funny about that is, look. 3 years before I got out, I bought a typewriter. Right. I paid $400.
I remember. Yeah.
I paid $400 for that typewriter on the inside. I got out. Right. I looked that typewriter up on the outside. It cost $60.
Yeah.
$60.
Yeah.
And they charged us $400 in there.
Yes.
Right. But then you know why? It's because they don't want us to have access to any kind of writing utensil. If I can have a typewriter, right? If I want to file some kind of a legal complaint, if I want to file a complaint or I want to file like a lawsuit against the state and I have a typewriter, they don't know what's coming before it gets there.
Yeah.
If I have to use their computers and their printers, right? They get to decide what gets printed and what doesn't.
It's a reason why certain subjects of literature aren't allowed in prisons.
Exactly.
You know, the thought of it's a false sense of reassurance they're giving society. Yeah, these guys are in here. We're providing them programs. We're providing them schooling. But God forbid you order a book on an Islamic subject that you want to study, on a philosophical subject that you want to study, on a history subject that you want to read up on.
Right.
They deem it problematic.
Right. Then it's contraband.
Yeah, you can't have this.
You can't have
because
this.
we can't have you thinking this way.
Right.
And coming up with stuff to get back at us.
The thing is, hold on. On this topic, have you heard about what's going on right now?
In the prisons?
In Stillwater.
I heard that there's a lockdown or something.
They've started saying that the books that are being sent in to the guys on the inside are laced with some kind of drug or some junk like that.
So no books can come in.
So they have taken all of the books. They've taken all of the books from all of the inmates inside the prison. Like, you can't have your own books anymore. All of your paperwork.
In all the prisons?
In Stillwater. I don't know if it's in all the prisons, but it's definitely in Stillwater, right? They've taken all of your letters, your magazines, your newspapers. They've taken any kind of paper product. They've taken it all from people. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. But they've got the whole place locked down.
Before I left, they were having issues about, them seeing substance or, stuff on letters and books. And they were talking about having to photocopy and scan people's legal mails, their personal letters and stuff and pictures
to give them to that.
And you get the digital copies on your tablet, but yet we'll keep the original copies and you only get them when you're going home, or we're allowed to release them to you.
Right.
How in a facility like Stillwater, how are they able to go to each cell and take these guys' books from them?
This is in any facility, but here's the thing. This is what's funny about it, right? This is what I think is a joke, and it's because you and I both know, right? If there's something coming into the facility, it's the guards and the staff that are bringing it in there. This stuff's not coming in books or letters or anything like that.
Dude,
I've seen it 1,000 times.
You know how many guards we've seen escorted in handcuffs?
Right, get escorted out. You know what I'm saying? Get escorted out. You know what I'm saying? For bringing things in that they're not supposed to be bringing in for people.
There was a guard in Faribault that got caught right in the visiting room, handing off something or receiving something. And once again, it's indicative of, one thing I've noticed about America is that we live in a society that spends a lot of money and time trying to fix and develop things that are not conducive to our way of living. That's not, you're spending trillions of dollars on a hydro collider to create life matter.
Right. For what?
You want to create life, but the life that's already here,
Yeah,
you're not investing in. You're not helping nurture.
Right.
You're spending billions of dollars to go find another planet. When the planet you're on, you're just neglecting.
It's true.
You know?
It's absolutely true.
So it's you see it in the prison industrial complex, to where like you're not paying these guards properly. These guards are not properly. Some of them are right out of high school. Right. You ever seen these kids in the white training shirts in the child hall when we went to child? It's like, you got to be 19. You should not be in this prison training for a job.
Right.
At that age. You know, at that age.
But you got to think, these are kids whose parents probably worked in the facility for the last like 15,
it's
20
a cultural,
years.
yeah.
So
it's a family legacy.
This is a family legacy,
Literally,
cultural thing. It is.
Military,
It is.
Policing, and prison work. It's somewhat of it's passed down. It's embedded in American culture.
Right.
You go to some towns. Some towns are known for just having prisons.
Right. Right.
I just saw one last night. My buddy and I went to Wasika to go pick up a bike.
Right.
And as we're
Faribault is one of those
it's
towns.
right by, yeah.
Yeah, Faribault
As
is
we're
one of those
nearing
towns.
the last street before we reach the gentleman's house, I see a fence.
Right.
I'm like, unmistakable. First, I saw a guard in an unmarked Suburban sitting on the corner.
Okay.
And I told my buddy, I'm like, he's either a prison guard or he's a cop.
Right.
And behold, literally, we were right next to a federal prison.
Right.
Right next to a federal prison.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
And they would put them anywhere. They would staff them with just anybody. They would equip them with anything, you know?
Right.
As long as that facility is able to pass minimum standards.
Right.
Minimum. Is there running water? Is there flushing? Sometimes you don't even need running water. Look at Angola.
Is it actually water? Look at Stillwater.
Look at Angola. Look at Stillwater.
Yeah, I'm saying, is it actually water?
You know?
But here, we've kind of drifted off topic though. Let's get back to this reentry thing, right? So, I mean, when you think about like the experiences that you've had, you know, coming back into society, like not what you think it should be, because nothing is ever what we think it should be, right? But what you felt like it could have been, or, you know, maybe something like what you expected versus what actually happened. Like, can you explain like the difference? Like, okay, I expected this to be this, I expected this to be that, but it wasn't this, it was more like this, and this.
I expected more help from my family. Yeah. I expected more help from my family, because not that I was dependent on it, but there was some level of reassurance that was, you know, the months leading up to release.
Right.
You know, it's, hey, you know, come home, we're here, we'll help you however we can.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of indicative of us in the African community, as African immigrants, that with due consideration, a lot of our loved ones are not prepared to deal with someone or one of their family members being in prison. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
When I was in Lino,
Right.
my aunt's house was the exit before Lino. Literally, I could see the backyard from the fence.
Oh, wow.
And my cousin Ron was living at home at the time. He had graduated St. Cloud State. He came back to the cities. And he was 10 minutes away. You know how many times Ron came and visited me in Lino? Once.
Wow.
And throughout my time in there,
Right.
it affected me in a way emotionally, and I had to like sit and really think about it.
Right.
Kind of like come to a rationalization about like why is it that my other African brothers who were born in America and, you know, raised here, you know, their family members, they know how to apply for the visiting, they know how to write the letters, they know what a JPay is.
Right.
But it's kind of telling of the two different cultures. How messed up it is that a family can be so privy and comfortable
Right.
with having their family members and loved ones be in those situations. Whereas you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have an African family or Asian family or Korean family or immigrant family. They don't know what to do.
Right.
They don't know how far that prison is. They don't, they completely naive. So I had to kind of get to an understanding about that. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe they don't want to come because they're not okay seeing me in here.
Right.
You know, what would it do to them if they were to come through these gates and, see what there's, I had to kind of think of all that and like kind of give them some level of empathy. But when I came home, a lot of family members who had extended help throughout my time in prison, they were a little overwhelmed.
Right.
They were very overwhelmed. They were not prepared for it because it's like, all right, the state cannot provide me housing right now. I have to look for it. And if I relay that need to my family members and my loved ones, now it becomes part of their burden.
Right. Right.
So a lot of stuff I didn't communicate.
So you just didn't say.
Yeah.
Right.
Like my uncle would call me from Maryland. Uncle William, he calls me every single. I've gone days without picking up his calls because what am I going to tell him? I'm still not housed. Right. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, or my job isn't paying me on time.
Right.
My phone bill is due, and this and that, and I got surgery coming up, medical bills.
Now I want to talk. You just touched on another topic that I want to talk about, the whole employment situation. Now, your employment situation is very unique.
Yeah.
Right? Just kind of explain so everybody else knows how, where it is you work, what it is you do, and the employer that you're currently dealing with, what that situation is.
So, for a lot of people, because prior to going to prison, I did jail time. I've done some stints in a workhouse and in regular jail. And so spending time in confinement and being released, I was kind of used to. Or not used to, but I've experienced.
Right.
And when I first pleaded guilty to my charges, 2011 or 12, back then I had no issues getting a job.
Right.
Because I was, I was on probation, and even though I was newly a felon, I think the social and political climate back then was very different from what it is now.
Right.
Now, your success rate as far as finding a job, in my opinion, is solely dependent on who you know and your ability to network.
Exactly.
Your ability to overcome your anxieties, overcome your apprehension of being out in society and talking to people. Because a lot of guys, we've seen guys in a unit that go from their room to the shower to chow hall and back.
Right.
You might see him playing cards with their one friend,
Right.
but he's back in his room.
Right.
And you have an individual who lives that life, that pattern, for years, for decades, and now he's out. You expect this guy to go to a job interview,
Right.
and properly articulate himself in front of an employer, regardless of all the classes and stuff we do in there, the
Right.
re-entry
What
stuff,
in the classes? Anyway.
regardless of that stuff.
Right.
I fortunately, and I think this is one of the things that helped me while I was in there too, I've always had a thing, and I think I learned this from my mother, I always had a thing of networking. It's a very, very common trait in us Africans when we go abroad to other countries. We tend to have, or tend to acquire, or seek out to acquire, I should say, people in every facet of society.
Right.
So I might have a friend who's in law school. I might have a friend who's in the military. I might have another friend who's getting her doctor's. So, in other words, knowing people in position and in different structures of society that you can turn to for help.
Right.
Because like the saying, I had a guy one time say this to a kid in a living unit. He said, kid, if you and all your friends tote guns and gangbang, who are you gonna call to for help?
Right.
Who are you gonna go to for any positivity?
Right.
If everyone you surround yourself with, all of you do the same thing,
Right.
you're essentially trapped. There's
Right.
nowhere you can turn to for positivity. There's nowhere you can turn to vent and get some positive reinforcement.
I mean, networking. I mean, yeah, I get it though, because networking. I think that works for anybody who's like, I mean, inside or outside.
Yeah.
You have to know. You got to
Yeah.
know people. You got to be able to connect with people. You have to talk to people. I've spent the last almost 6 months now, you know what I'm saying, doing just that,
Building
a
that,
network,
Yeah.
building a network, getting to know people, getting to know who they are, where they are, you know what I mean, and trying to find, you know, my place in the circle of things, you know what I mean, trying to find out like what, instead of just jumping to the first thing that hops out to me and going to the first position that's available to me, you know.
Being patient.
For me,
laying
it
the
was like
groundwork.
I'm like laying groundwork, laying a foundation, trying to find out, okay, well, where can I get in at,
Yeah.
right? Where do I have to start out at, right? And what I'm learning is that, you know, apply these things, apply, you know, what education you have, apply what knowledge you have, you know, build your network, meet certain people, express yourself in a positive light, let them know who you are really, right? And then look for, you know, like, okay, now I need to try to advance. I need to try to place myself.
Yeah.
I need to try to find a position. I need to try to do these things. What I have found though is that I honestly believe this. What I have found though is that because I'm a felon, because I just recently got out, there are some people who try to take advantage. They feel like, you know, you just got out, you're desperate, so,
Yeah.
you know, I can offer you anything and you'll take it.
That's a problem.
You know, I can offer you anything and you'll take it. I'll offer you anything and you'll run with it.
Or I can withhold your checks and your wages, or underpay you.
Right.
And you know,
And you won't say anything
Yeah.
because you need this
I
job.
can enact the worst levels of wage theft on you, and
Right.
what are you going to do about it?
Right.
You know?
And this is the kind of stuff that happens. But see, this is like I had there's a guy, and again, I won't say any names. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody or anything like that. But this guy offers me a job, right? But I had just been asked to speak at a national conference, right? I had just been asked to speak at a national conference, and I'm asked to speak because, you know, I'm the felon that just got out of jail, and, you know, and I'm trying to do like these positive things and blah blah blah. So, you know, everybody wants, you know, to be like, you know, the guy in the picture with the guy who's getting out and doing positive things, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, this guy offers me a job, you know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, you know, people I'm hiring, you know, we're making anywhere from, you know, 70 to about 95 a year. We're going to get you in a good position. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing, right? But then when he calls me about the position, he's offering me a position that's like 35 a year. I said, what happened to all the other people you were talking about hiring for like 70 to 80, 90 a year?
Yeah.
What happened to that? Oh, well, you know, I mean, we gotta, you know, you gotta start out, you know, at a certain level or whatever, you know, you work your way up through the ranks or whatever eventually. And I'm like, I can make 35 a year without a job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You basically telling me I'm not worth it.
Right.
You know?
I can make 35 a year, you know, like just working for myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I do that. I get that, you know, just working odd jobs on the side. What are you saying?
That's where we have to fight, is that some of us end up being shortchanged at every corner we turn.
Right.
Every corner we turn, and I can see how, for a lot of guys who are not mentally tough, they don't have that circle around them to, you know, people who are texting them and calling them,
Right.
telling them to keep pushing, and, you know, hey, we're here for you. Positive affirmation and positive reinforcement every day.
Right.
I can see how a lot of guys can just get fed up and say, you know what? I'm going back to that. I don't have to deal with this.
I almost did.
You know? Yeah,
At one point.
for some people it's
I
an
almost
easy
did.
decision.
I came very close.
But we know what that's gonna where that's
Well,
going
we
to
know
lead
where
to.
it goes,
You know?
right? We know where it goes, which is why you don't. You know what I'm saying?
And it's very, because it's not a cliche when a lot of us say, oh, the system is set up for you to fail.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
it literally is.
Absolutely.
It literally is. Because some of these things, we're sitting on this panel, we're talking about this. I'm pretty sure somewhere in this country, there are hundreds of other people at tables and around fires having these discussions right now. And tomorrow morning, there'll be hundreds of men, young men,
Right.
men of all ages being released back into society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what they're coming to, what they're being given as a tool
Yeah.
is highly inadequate. It's not enough.
It isn't. I mean, here's the thing, though. I'm gonna say like this. I want to throw this out there. I really do want to say this. When I first got out, right? They let me out. I already told you how that happened, right? I get out. I have now again. Let me backstep a little bit. I have been asking my case manager, right, over and over and over and over again for the last 6 months. Do I have my birth certificate? Do I have, my social security card?
Essential things.
Do I have, my state ID or a driver's license? Do I have these things? Over and over and over again for 6 months, he told me, yes, we have them in your base file, we have them in your base file, we have them in your base file. When I walked out, they gave me nothing. I had nothing. This is the trick, though, right? Do you know that you can't, I had, and this is the truth, I had managed to save about $2,700 while I was in prison.
Yeah.
I had managed to put that away and hold on to that, right? So I had $2,700 in my pocket. This was funny about it, though. You can't spend it
No.
anywhere. It does you no good
Yeah.
to have $2,500 on a debit card and you have no ID
Yeah.
and you just got out of prison. You know what I'm saying? It does you absolutely no good. So the thing is, so I found out those places where you can go to, you know what I'm saying, where you can buy this or that or the other thing, but you can't go to a restaurant. That's not gonna happen.
With that card.
You're not going.
First of all, they're going to look at that card
And then they're looking at you in
Yeah.
your prison gear because that's all you have.
Yeah.
Right? You can't walk into Target and buy clothes with that. You know what I'm saying? You got to have clothes already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right? Here's the thing. For 2 weeks, right? I'm walking around town trying to figure out how to get my birth certificate, how to get my social security card, how to get my driver's license or a
this is not
state
your
ID.
home state.
This is not my home state,
Yeah.
right? So I'm trying to figure these things out, and I can't. It's just not working. Nothing that I'm doing is working. This is the thing. They tell me, this was funny as hell. They tell me you can't get your birth certificate without your driver's license.
You need
You
your
can't
birth certificate.
You can't get your driver's license without your birth certificate. And hold on, you can't get your social security card without both of them, right? I'm like, well, then if you don't have one, you're just screwed. They're like, well, if you live here for 2 years, you have to have lived here for 2 years or be out for 2 years before we can just give it to you, right? Or you have to know somebody for 2 years or more who is a state resident. Hold on, hear me out. I said, so if I don't know somebody who's for 2 years, if I haven't known anybody for 2 years, and I haven't lived here already for 2 years after I get out of prison, I've been here for 8 years. Hold on, this is what's funny. So they're like, no, we can't do that for you, right? I'm in the homeless shelter, and there are guys in the homeless shelter. They're beginning to recognize, like, dude, you're one of them smart dudes. You know this, that, and the third. You did whatever, dude. Hey, you can help us do what we're doing. Forget what they're doing.
Yeah.
Forget what they're telling you to do. They're not going to help you. They're not there for you. They want you to mess up. They want you to go back.
Wholeheartedly.
And they're telling me, these dudes are telling me, and there's like 6 or 7 of them. And we're all outside, sitting outside this homeless shelter one day, and they're like, dude, we could use somebody like you, man. You'll boost us all. You'll boost us all up.
Absolutely.
We'll all come up just messing with you. Dude, I swear, I said, give me this weekend. I said, if I don't have a birth certificate or an ID by some kind of something by Tuesday next week, I'm on that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Because, you know, if you're not going to let me survive legally, if you're not going to let me do what I want to do the right way and be a part of society, I will undermine the shit out of this.
Yeah.
And I don't care. You're not, I mean, I got to survive. I
It's
have a right. I have a right to survive.
Yeah.
I have a right to survive. It's my
Absolutely.
birthright, right?
Absolutely.
You can't tell me I just got to come out here and die or go back to prison. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to. So it was like, give me a few more days, man. But if I don't have anything by Tuesday, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I got you.
Because
Look,
the reality is,
the thing is,
every
like, the
man
next-
controls his own destiny.
That's the thing. But look, on Monday, it was Monday the next week, Travis, the guy who was with the Trek, who started the Trek program, he's like, well, Nev, I've known you for like 3 years. I can go down there with you and help you get your ID. I can help you get your birth certificate. I was like, would you though? And he was like, yeah, for sure.
Look at that.
Dude, I mean, right on time though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Inshallah. And I mean that,
Yeah.
right? Right on time though, right? But it was like, I mean, if it had been just one more day, I was like, okay, all right, well, they don't want me to do it this way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it this way. But this is what I think people in this culture, people in this society don't get. It's like you want to ostracize people, you want to cancel them out, you want to cut them off, and you want to make things difficult for them. But you don't understand, when you make things difficult, desperate people do desperate things.
For every action, there's a reaction.
That's all
Or
it is.
lack thereof.
You know?
And you know one thing I came to realize about us in America and the society we live in, we tend to create problems, and then when they boil over,
Then it's
society is like, wait, hold on, how did this happen?
Right,
How
right.
did you created this.
You did
you
it.
watered it, you nourished it. You created you put in that pot the right recipe
Right,
to brew up something that you're not ready for,
right.
you know, or you don't want to live with. And I think the whole prison reform thing, until they stop seeing us as cash cows, until they stop seeing us as, oh, you did something, so now you're being punished and you're doing your time. And
Yeah.
this is the punishment you should have, is you should work this, fold these balloons for 25 cents. You know?
Right.
Then maybe
right.
when you go back into society, you would think twice about, breaking the law.
And I got a theory about that too, and I gotta say this. I got a theory about that. It's like this, hold on. When you put me in chains, throw me in a cage, take me away from my family, take me away from my friends, completely take my freedom away from me, you know what I'm saying? And tell me when to wake up, when to go to sleep, when to eat, when I can go out, when I can't go out. When you take all of these things from me,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I'm already being punished. I don't need you in my face,
Yeah.
over my shoulder, breathing on my neck constantly,
Yeah.
with your foot on my neck, or with your knee in my neck, or however it is you want to look at it, right? We don't need all the extra. You already took everything away from me. That's my punishment.
Yeah.
All this extra is unnecessary.
And then you get done and you're perpetually being punished.
Right.
Perpetually. And it never ends.
Yeah. I gotta. We're gonna take a break, and we'll get back in about 10 minutes. Okay, after our brief break, we are back with Kwaku Bruce. And I think I forgot to introduce myself at first. I have never Hall. I should have said that in the beginning. But Kwaku, I want to ask. I mean, we've had a really good discussion these last few minutes. We've talked a lot about a lot of different topics, a lot of different things and issues that we both face and that we all face. Re-entering society, right? But if you really had to sit down and think about it, and you mentioned earlier, there's like hundreds of brothers that are about to step out of prison, because of the MRRA program, right?
Yeah.
Or MRRA Act.
Yeah.
Hundreds of brothers are going to be released tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? If you had some sound advice or some insight or some direction that you'd want to give any or all of them, what would that be? What would that sound like?
Stay close to family and community. Staying close to family and community, because I think a lot of us didn't have that going in. And in order for you to succeed in today's society, you need that foundation. The family aspect of it first. You don't necessarily have to be your biological family, but surrounding yourself with people who would go to bat for you. People who would call your parole office on your behalf, people who would drive you to an interview, people who would reference for you. And through bad decision making and, whatever situation, people tend to, alienate themselves, and having been in there serving their time, further alienate themselves by not communicating with, loved ones and close friends. And coming out, you cannot do this on your own.
Yeah, you're right about that.
You cannot do this on your own. So staying to community, as in finding whatever, religious stuff you practice and being part of that community, going to whatever outreach program in your community and being part of that, because sadly, we end up helping each other more than all these programs and all these things that the state. One of my favorite quotes by Bob Marley is, and I quote, "Why would you allow your enemies to educate your kids?"
Oof. Yeah.
In other words, the same people, the same government, the same body of government that put you in a box, gave you a number, fed you slop, took away your religious book, took away your bare necessity to exist as a human being. You're relying on that same government to help you re-enter society and aid you in getting a life back, or even creating a life that you never had. They're not going to do it.
No.
They're ill-equipped to do it. They're not prepared to do it. They don't want to do it.
They're not ill-equipped to do it. They don't want to do it.
We're worth more to them in there than we are out here. So for an individual who's coming out, regardless of whatever, stipulations they're coming out of, having executed their time or coming under parole, whatever, or exonerated, family and community. Those two things are highly imperative to you succeeding.
You're right. You're right. That's actually something I would have had a hard time admitting to before this experience. And it hasn't been family for me. It's been friends and community for me. It's been friends and community for me. But it's without them, I'd have gone the extreme opposite direction that I'm moving in right now. I really would have. Without them, without people on my side, without people, checking in on me, without people, who are like, pushing me, to keep trying and keep pushing and be persistent, and, and telling me, like, yeah, you can do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I would like to add to that, though, is that one thing that is keeping me going, and one thing is, it's like staying focused and staying on my goal, like what it is, my idea, my concept of what I want my life to look like out here. It's like I am constantly having to remind myself, like, this is who I want to be, this is where I want to be, this is what I want my life to look like, and it's staying focused, and it's easy to get distracted out here.
Oh,
it's easy to get distracted out here.
It's a daily struggle for me.
Yeah.
Like, truthfully speaking, it's a daily struggle, because there's that strong fear of, like, FOMO. Like, oh, I've been missing out on so much. It's time for me to indulge in all these things I've been missing out on.
Right.
Well, in reality, if you if a person were to go that route, if a person were to have that in their release plan, then you're starting off backwards. Because all the people you were talking on the phone with, a lot of those friends, they were doing the same thing they've been doing when you left them. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna come out and get back to that, or try to like make up for lost time? You can't make up for that time.
There's no going backwards.
You know, you can only use it to propel you forward. You know, whatever trauma, whatever, you know, hardship you were meant to go through, you were forced to endure, and you were subjected to in there. For some of us, we don't have the mental capacity to turn that into fuel. We turn it into the wrong fuel. You know, and for some individuals, rightfully so, because some of the things I experienced in there, man, in Lino, just asking a guard in a gym, hey, can I take a picture before gym closed? He says 1 minute. 4 minutes later, when I knocked on the door, this guard comes out, yells at me. By the time I know it, I'm in handcuffs and I've been taken to the hall.
Wow.
Just politely talking to someone,
right?
And you instantly, the sword is coming down on your back.
Yeah, I understand the extreme of it. Believe me.
So dealing with that stuff, it scars you mentally. And I'll be honest with you, I get on my bike, and even if I'm going somewhere, I'm just joyriding around, I see guys that we were incarcerated with.
Right.
I come across a lot of guys. Some of them I say hi to, some would recognize me, some will recognize each other. And as I'm rolling past them, I've had this thought like, wow, I wonder how he's doing.
Right.
Like, oh, that I remember him. He's out now.
Right.
But man, if you were to ask that brother, man, what like, you know?
Yeah, like, you know, how are you doing? What was it like for you? You know what I'm saying? Where have you been? But the thing is, here, what I'm saying is here on this program, on reentry, and what we're doing right now, we are going to be inviting brothers here to sit down and discuss those things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We want to know their stories. We want to know what it is they're talking about. We want to know where they've been, where they're going, and what their plans are. Yeah. You know,
a healthy platform to be able to do that.
But we want also to, I think we want to encourage people to look forward to something better than what they're being told they are they're worth or they're capable of. Yeah. I mean, you know what it was like in there. You know what it's like in that place. I mean, every day was a beat down, and you're told you're never going to be anything. You're never going to do anything. You know, we'll see you in a couple months. You know how they talk to you. You know how they talk to you in there. You know, but it's like, you know, it's for those of us, honestly, and I'm saying us, it's for those of us who are out, been out and staying out, right? To kind of find those other brothers and ones that you ride by on your bike, and ask the question. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, how you doing, bro? How you feeling? Yeah. You know what I mean? How's it going for you? What have you been doing lately? You know? It's for us to try to make a change and make a difference. It's like, but yeah, I like what you said though. I like what you said. Family and community. Yeah. Family and community. That's huge. That's huge. All right, well, I guess, I don't know, I guess that's a wrap for us this session. Yeah. But we're definitely going to be having Mr. Kwaku Bruce back again.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. It's a pleasure. Always, I would always make myself available for this. I told Mr. Washington that, you know, it's not enough to go through the trauma, to go through that and just come out and say, you know what, I'm just going to move on with my life. Right. You know, some people can just do that and not have to, you know. Personally, those journals that I wrote, those kites I kept, you know, the letters from family that I kept, the research on things that I noticed in there that I was documenting, you know, all these things, the newspaper clippings. Imagine reading the papers while you're sitting in prison and reading about stuff that's affecting you. Right. Or seeing headlines in the papers about the facility you're at.
Right.
And seeing quotes from that warden that you know isn't true.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, but we did it, every day.
Every single
Every
day.
day. Every day we had to
Single
deal
day.
with
So
that.
I'm grateful for this platform. I'm highly, highly appreciative of being brought onto the team to be able to do this, because I think when we talk about prison reform, us being in front of these audiences or in front of these cameras and saying, stating out, or like they like to say nowadays in pop culture, speaking your truth.
Right. For sure.
Speaking our truths and not necessarily trying to traumatize people or scare people, but hey, that cousin you have incarcerated that's been in for 10, this is what he's going through.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone, call him, write him a letter.
Right.
Start implementing, start putting things in place to help him when he gets out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think my brother Albert Sherman, ex-military guy, he's very naive about how government works in America. He thinks, oh, they're gonna afford you this. Oh, aren't they supposed to provide you this? No. It's on me and family.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of young men having this platform to tell their stories and have people like first-hand account.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's where you find the truth of it.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not going to find
6
it.
o'clock news ain't going to, it's not going to
They're going to edit out anything that they don't like or anything they don't want you to hear.
So it starts just like how brothers in Angola had, we're getting cell phones in there. They were recording, sending videos and documenting the kind of horrific things that were happening to them. The same way these young men are documenting or keeping the kite and the correspondence, whatever it is, that stuff needs to be shared.
Right.
It needs to be shared. It needs to be known, and something needs to be done about it. So I think this is the first step.
Like I said, you just said though, it's going to be a flood of brothers coming out in a day, in less than 24 hours. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to running into a few of them. Yeah. I'm like, come on, we're going to do this right here. When it's here. Yeah. All right, man. Thanks again, bro.
You're welcome.
Yep.